Hey guys, Trevor here with Right a Leaf, and today I'm lucky enough to have Adolfo on with me. Now, Adolfo's kind of holds a special place in my heart because my original herbage scale review comes from the information and the video content that he was putting out with Cannabis at the point in time. So a lot of where I come from for my look and aroma, the bud breakdown, and just the respect towards the plant as a whole, and the effect that environment can play into it and the grow style can play into it. And you need to appreciate that when you're actually looking and reviewing your plants. He gave me that baseline to start doing what I'm doing now. So without that information, I wouldn't really be able to do the style of content and the depth of content that I do today. So I'm really happy to have him on and be able to share our information. Hopefully I learn more and you guys learn a lot from him as well, because it was a great starting point for me. So thank you for coming on, man. And thank you for giving me that kind of base point to start with.
Trevor, thanks for having me, dude. It's always a pleasure to hang with you, man.
Yeah, it was lucky to be able to meet you out in Ontario and then be able to just grow from there. Like it's been awesome.
Yeah, dude. Always a good time. Loved what you gave me to smoke last time I saw you. So shout out to that. Yeah, that was a good grow, buddy.
Yeah, triple scoop turned out pretty good. And I still got a little bit of its left, and it gets better, but it's not quite as good as I want it to be.
It was delicious. It was different. I really enjoyed it, dude. Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just took down Skywalker Ghost Autoflower, and I did a live hash rosin run with it. And the water on the first one looked like raspberry juice, like watermelon juice almost. It's got like a raspberry gas milkshake smell to it. It's going to be crazy. I've got probably I'm going to guess between 40 and 50 grams of flour downstairs drying right now. So we'll see what the big buds turn out like too. We'll have to get you some of that to try.
Yeah, man. Got to come down to Bookclub sometime and bring that stuff. We'd love to check it out.
Oh, absolutely. I got, what is it? 4 different genetics running right now that I'm trying to find something good to grow. So once I get everything with that set up, and I know I'll be coming back to Vancouver because the in-laws are out in Vancouver. So
don't forget to take a cut of your mom's, remember?
Hey, I learned that from the last time. Learn early and don't make the mistake again. There's a bunch of small little plant that I left. I didn't lollipop the entire plant.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that can slip by easily, and you only make the mistake once, right? You find one queen that slips by and you're like, oh, never again, right?
Well, what's funny is at the event I was at yesterday for like the grow up mixer, the dinner in Edmonton, somebody else had grew the triple scoop as well, and they just take it down. I smelt it, and it had a lot more of like a cherry punch to it, but it still had that really fermented orange rind to it. And as soon as I said that, I'm like, oh, that's the funk that it was. So you pointing that out has been able to share that with everybody I've shared it with, or they've grown it themselves.
They're selling some quality seeds then down at, what was it? 24th Street, 23rd Street, what are they called?
Yeah, 34th Street Seed. Yeah.
34th Street Seed. There you go. Classic dyslexic memorization of a number-based name.
There's too many numbers in this industry too, right?
Yeah, man.
Oh.
So what's happening?
Oh, been working hard, getting these podcasts up and running, trying to get as many people on here, trying to kind of provide the information that we have in the smoke pits at these conferences. Let's record these conversations and put them out there so people can listen to them, because the amount of times where we could just stick a mic in there and just record the conversations we're having and it be beneficial for the industry is missed out realistically.
Yeah, man, for real.
So yeah. That's what this is, right? Let's give people the opportunity where we can just sit down, spark up if we want to spark up, and just talk about what's going on, right?
I love it.
So you've got some genetics that you're working on right now with a couple of, Mike, my one buddy, he's always talking about it. He's excited about that. And you said that you had a couple of other projects that are kind of in the works right now.
Yeah. Well, I've been working on genetics pretty intensely for the past 4 or 5 years, which was a bit of a switch in focus for me. I was traditionally more of a curator and a broker. And before that, I was a grower for a long time and did some breeding. But honestly, I always had friends of mine that had better plants, better cuts, and I would usually just focus on growing my friends' cuts and whatever work they were working on. So yeah, the breeding recently became a pretty big focus. Did a lot of good work with Mike Hichi and Michael Borg out east. Yeah, shout out to both of those guys, the Wormhole crew. Me and Mike Hichi is basically we did the garlic layer cake. We did a lot of basically my favorite crosses from that work was probably all of the garlic breath crosses that coming from work that came originally from Thug Pug. So yeah, really proud of all that work. We're probably going to be finding a place for some of that work in the legal business soon, so that's pretty exciting. And to be honest, like I'm probably going to go back to doing a lot of curating because even like I think actually, especially the black hole, specifically the garlic layer cake that I made with Mike Hichi, I think that's going to be probably a solid classic that hangs out for a while. And we made a couple of other plants that have potential. But like I'm also, as you know, Trev, I'm always keeping my ear to the street. I come from the gray market and built myself there over the course of the past 23 years in Canada. And I have to say, I'm just so impressed with some of the other work that some of my friends are doing that I'm just like so amazed by the quality. I thought I was the only one popping out future flavors, but man, there's some people down here in BC that were doing as good, or dare I say, better than me and Mike. Some of the work I've seen recently is like not better, it's different. It's just so amazing that it's inspired me to start to figure out this puzzle of how to bring cultivars into the legal market. And more importantly, though, it's bringing them in is easy. That's what I've realized. That bringing them in is no big deal. Getting you as the breeder paid appropriately for your intellectual property and getting you as the breeder protected to do that, that's becoming more of a point of focus for me. It's and you know, Trev, I've been an activist and I've been involved in what I like to call social engineering for a long time, via of course civil disobedience. And I always say people like it's breaking the law is sounds really cool, but it's dangerous as fuck, and you only really have fun if you're doing good things. Otherwise, it's just all like heart palpitations. Then the money comes and you spend that, and you fucking get back to it, and it's another lifeless, joyless job in the end for a lot of people. And like, in order to really love this job, you have to do things that have meaning and things that like cause effect that are beyond your personal like interest and your personal assumption of what should happen sometimes even. You have to like talk to people, look at what's going on in the street, get a feel for what's happening culturally, and then say, man, I want to do this thing that's a little bit on the border of legality, but it's really positive and needed, you know? And I think that that's kind of what I'm leaning into right now, where I'm just connecting with my old self, that person that moved to Canada to start working in an illicit sector where, I had a very safe and like a very awesome upbringing down there. Like all my friends ended up doing really well. And like I have definitely found it difficult to stay connected to that sense of like awe and inspiration that I had for so much time. I love being a teacher. I love what I did at Cannabis. I love working recently for Station House and Potluck. Shout out to those guys. But like, I'll be honest with you, there's so much innovation that needs to take place in this business. And like, I'm not going to go back to the gray sector. It's not possible for me anymore. I'm too used to being safe and comfortable and getting my paycheck and paying my taxes and the whole thing. But I'm definitely wanting to help my friends that are still in that world make that crossover like I have and get that, I feel like I've gotten a lot of love from people because I'm like one of those people that came from the underground that's always been really above ground. I've been very vocal. I've been very, you can reach me. I don't give a fuck because I have a particular type of career where I have a good relationship with the city of Vancouver, with the police, and they kind of know who I am. And I'm not thinking they're going to come get me for past transgressions, and I'm not really doing much now anymore. So I want to become that vocal person again, and I want to become that link from the illicit into the legal framework. And that's a lot of what I want to do, is help my friends with amazing flavors that are really unsung heroes. A lot of them that have been around way longer than me. People think I'm an OG because I've been here since 2001, dude. I'm a kid. Like, I'm nothing. I'm nothing, man. Like, I'm
I
really,
sit in the same place as you, man. Like,
yeah.
I'm even newer than you. I'm 8 months pre-legalization was when I started learning and getting into it.
Yeah, dude, I've been at it 21 years in Canada. I've been in Mexico, but honestly, more as a consumer and just somebody chasing flavors down there. Up here is where I really learned everything from Canadian people that opened up their homes to me and that fucking taught me everything. Shout out Dr. Hornby and um, Marcus, Bubble Man. If it wasn't for Ryan Lee, if it wasn't for Remo, if it wasn't for all these people that were so fucking kind to me, Johnny B, like all these people that I could just call up and ask questions, man, and hang out with Paul Hornby for a few weeks and then fucking come out thinking totally differently about the plant. And these are the people that I'd like, and may Paul rest in peace. And so many people that like Subcool, may he rest in peace. All these people that like were mentors to me that have passed away from this world now, and they never got their cred, man. They never made their money, they never got their cred. And I feel like my work is great and I've done really good stuff. I want Mike Hichi especially to get cred for what he's done and to get him paid for his amazing plants that he's created with me and other work that he's sure to do after we've worked together. Like I told you, I'm not going to be doing a lot of breeding. I suspect Mike Hichi is going to stay focused on breeding. My boy in East Coast, Michael Borg, he'll keep focused on breeding. I'm just not in a economic situation right now where I can keep up my operation. I have to focus on building a company that will be successful enough to give me the wage that I require to get back to where I was.
Yep.
And transition to legality has not been easy for me for the past 7 years. It's not been like walk in the park. Yeah, dude, the breeding is still going on. The breeding is still happening. I'm still going to do collabs with a bunch of people. Cactus Genetics and I right now are pairing up and we're going to be doing some really cool work together. Shout out to Cactus Genetics because I think that crew is like one of the most progressive, groundbreaking breeding crews in Canada right now. So like basically my focus, dude, is like on community right now. And that's really what happens with Bookclub, right? That's what Bookclub is, you know? We can segue onto that, but dude, have you came to Bookclub? Did you, Trev? Were you here with us? No.
No, I
You
had
left,
to.
right?
I
You left
flew
that
out
day before we
that
met it.
afternoon. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't able to see you that Saturday. I saw Benny post a bunch. I've been like, anytime I see it, I always try to watch the videos that you guys post, and it looks exactly to the style of events that I want to have around here, where it's just let's get consumers who maybe it's a rotating flow of people because you do 1 week that's hash, 1 week that's more flower because you have the space that can only accommodate that, but if you can get people who are like-minded together, sharing product and just talking about what's on the market's going to improve. Right? Like,
yeah.
And it'll open up so much information to be able to be shared, right? And just preventative purchases for some product because there's some stuff where it's like, just don't avoid it. It's not, the lot came out rough. It didn't come up to what we want, right? And just that kind of consumer safety, being able to talk amongst each other is a big benefit that we don't really have access to.
Yeah, man, I'll be honest with you. What better way to decide if you want to buy something, if you want to like get involved with a brand than to blaze or dab the product that they're going to be bringing to market with them, with the people that are making the product. So you get a chance as a bud tender, as a manager, as a buyer, as an owner, whatever you are, to meet those people, see what kind of people they are, to see what kind of vision they have for their product, and then to compliantly taste it. Because remember that like the core thing about Bookclub is it's not pay to play. Like And by the way, dude, anybody that does the pay to play model, I respect it. Like I think people gotta eat, and if that's what you're doing, and LPs are willing to give you money to share their product like that. I mean, it's not compliant, but I don't give a fuck. I've been non-compliant my whole life. I support you. And Trev, anybody doing these type of events out there, I say go at it. I say go at it. Now, some folks out there have definitely imitated our model to the T, and even some of our look, and given no shout out, given no phone call, given no nothing. That feels a little yucky to me, but at the same time, I'm like, do what you gotta do what you do. I respect you. Go and put these gatherings together. We need them. We need these spaces, right? If you're gonna replicate the book club model exactly, like as in, I think the one thing that very few people are gonna want to do about my model is the thing where it's not pay to play.
Yeah.
We are not building this thing to have it make money that way. We're gonna come up with other ways to sustain our operations, not necessarily make a bunch, but sustain our operations. And we think it's actually pretty crucial that there are instances and spaces where you literally just show up and bring your product and you're able to consume it. And that's kind of our intention, because I'll be honest with you, like I'm friends with a lot of local micros here in BC, and not just micros, but like LPs that are new. And these people, they don't have a marketing budget, man.
Nope.
They ain't even got money for somebody to go rep them on the street. These people are on the street themselves repping their own product. And I'm gonna ask these people that I love, that are making some of the best product in Canada, to come drop $500, $1,000 to have like a little brand display and show their product. Like, no, man. Like, I'll do that if I'm doing a special event and I'm bringing a big artist that I need to like cover the fee or some shit like that. Sure, then I'll like have some LPs be sponsors that have the budget for it. But for my regular Friday night and for like every day at Book Club for members, our focus is basically to have the space. Mind you that it's not like I'm telling you to come smoke in my room. People just happen to come and blaze and smoke there. Sometimes if there's too much of it going on, or if I catch people, I'll like not be too cool with excess smoke or excess, I as the tenant of that room am not supposed to be okay with people smoking in that room. But my landlord, it's a private space. It's my office and the book club office at large. And the landlord is totally okay with it. And that actually means that technically, as a private building, we are able to really do what we want, when we want. And that's the special thing about the book club space. Book club space is the closest thing you're going to have to a compliant, safe consumption space, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's any form that takes out there, it makes me happy. Any form that it takes out there in the world, it makes me happy. That's why we're doing this. We're doing this because we think this is needed at large. We're doing this because we think that this is something that needs to happen everywhere. And we're not the first. We are the first doing this exact model that we've created, where essentially it's industry only. We don't just allow members of the public in. And anybody from the industry can just pay $10 and they can bring any flower they want, whether they're an LP or not, and they can show it to other people, show their pride in their selection or show their pride in their own work. And that's pretty much the entire gist of it. The gist of it is a level playing field for everyone, anyone to come in and be hyped about product and geek out with other people that are at that same level, where we're not just weed geeks, we're in the weed business. It's our life. It's what we live and breathe. I think you know a little bit about that. So basically, yeah, dude, it's honestly, I love everything I've done with my career up to now, dude. I'll be honest with you. I love everything. You know, I got to be an advisor for Prime Minister of Jamaica. I've written papers and provided advice for the legislature in Mexico. I helped the city of Vancouver write the first set of regulations for dispensaries in Canada. I published the first opiate substitution study. All that shit was awesome, dude. This thing, Book Club, to me, is probably the most special I've ever fucking done. Because, dude, it's like the people wanted it so bad. And I didn't really know that it was that badly. Like, I didn't think it was going to be a big deal, dude. I thought we were going to do this night and like people were going to be like, I was going to get 10, 15 people there. We were going to have a good time. And that's what it was going to stay at. All of a sudden, we started seeing 40, 50, 60 people out there. All of a sudden, we were seeing new cultivars that nobody had ever seen before being brought to that group. All of a sudden, we're seeing LPs just show up and show us product before they launch it to get a gist for how people are vibing on it before you even hit market with it, man. And that's when I was like, click, okay, shit, man, this is like, it's happening organically. People like want it, right? So I feel like, honestly, it's not my project. It's not my idea. Shout out to Pete and to Axel, Pete Peterson, Axel Collin, two of my CannaRep students who were actually the first people to sit on a park bench and ask other people, yo, bring your stuff, let's talk about it. They were the first two to do that on a park bench. That's what it grew out of. That was happening like summer last year, dude. Summer last year, and now we've got head offices. Now we've got this beautiful space. We've got investors. We've got like an ability to do stuff that I think a lot of people would want to do, but the lack of capital, the lack of community doesn't allow it to happen. So it's a community effort, and that's what makes it so special to me, that it's like, I don't feel like it's mine or me pushing it. I'm just riding the wave with everybody behind it going, fuck yeah, this is what needs to happen. And it just feels like 2004 dispensary work again, bro. It feels like, because my mom and dad at first were like horrified. They were like, dude, don't do it. They're going to throw you out of Canada. Dude, I was an immigrant on a fucking student visa. I was so hyped on it. Dude, if they would have caught me, they would have shipped me right out of the country. I was so hyped on it that I went and I volunteered for like 2-3 years, no pay at dispensaries. And people were like, man, like, why aren't you getting paid, A? And B, why the fuck are you doing it? These people are like using you. I'm like, no, man, these people are teaching me. Every day I learn about cultivars, growers. I connect with growers. I meet all the growers. And I'm like, y'all don't understand what the value of that will be later in my life. As you know, I mark my words, that like excitement that I felt bubbling in my stomach, that was like instinctual, where I was like, I'm going the right way. Other people wouldn't, you know, right now, I'll be honest with you, when I told my mama, I'm running, you know, a vapor and smoke lounge, and she was like, Adolfo, what the fuck, man? You were running like way more. She was like, oh, you're gonna do bigger and better things. And I'm like, no, mom, you don't understand.
Yeah.
So you don't get it. Again, I was like, remember 2004 when I started volunteering at dispensaries? You thought it was fucking crazy, and look, it worked out. I'm like, I'm telling you, just this is a good move. And anybody out there, Trev, thinking about doing similar stuff, like, I'm just like, get ready to deal with your city, get ready to deal with your municipality, just like I did at all those dispensaries that I helped to run back in the day. I was that dude that when the cops came, yo, call Adolfo, man. And every time I managed to avoid our dispensary getting raided. Okay. Eden was one of the few dispensaries that when the cops came, we fought them on them taking our product every single time. And our patients, at the time, they were patients. These people had federal certificates for obtaining cannabis. We were very stringent when we first opened Eden, something that kind of changed later. But you know, it was this time, man. It was this time that I just knew some shit was happening. And right now, something's happening again in the industry. The industry's settling.
Yeah.
I think you know that. Trevor, I think we were talking about this in the conference.
Yeah.
The industry's settling. All the shit is flown. Everybody knows who's a bullshitter. It's gonna settle now. And now we're gonna start seeing new advances. The next wave, it's like the 2.0 of legalization. And I really feel like consumption spaces it's the thing that needs to happen like now. Well, especially with the smoking bylaws that we have all over Vancouver, man. It's nuts. You can't smoke anywhere, man. Like, what the fuck? And then, if you rent in an apartment, do you have a roommate? Or like me in my apartment, dude, in my apartment building, my strata is like, no, they know who I am, dude. They're like, Adolfo Gonzalez, we're watching you. Okay. Yeah, dude, I needed, for me, a safe consumption space was a game changer. You can ask my crew. I'm in Bookclub like quite regularly between all my when I'm doing all my meetups with the stores. I like make sure that my circuit stops at Bookclub at one point during the day. It's like, yeah, man, you don't want to be smoking on the road in your car, right? You don't want to be smoking outside the dispensary you just visited, right? And the fucking owner comes out, they're like, hey, Adolfo, you're on the job, you're taking a toke. Okay, bro. No, you don't want that. You want to be off the street. You want to be indoors because it's cold as fuck out there. Yeah, so it's basically my dream, dude. I'm sure, though, I'm going to stop talking. As you know, I'm a talker. So I'm sure you have some poignant questions to ask. So,
Well, I was actually building off of what you said a little while ago about building out the community and like creating resources for people that you don't even know that are utilizing them. Last night, I just found out about this, and I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it. So Amy Batista, she runs a store in Spruce Grove, I believe. She had a couple of students from the University of Alberta that worked within their theater program come in to get some advice and information on a project they were working on. And they wanted some terminology and some, like, essentially a walkthrough on bong terminology, how to use it and whatnot. Amy directed them to my profile, my Instagram profile, and the entire theater program utilized that to kind of develop into this project they're doing, the terminology and the uses of the bongs. Then at the end of the project, apparently they thanked me as an individual. And Amy just told me about this last night. Didn't have a clue that this happened. But it's just providing that information to be able to have people outside of the community get access to it and educate themselves on it. I'm right in that same wheelhouse, like building up that connection and just the open network for people to come in and learn is huge. Like we can't have, that is probably the biggest misstep with the legalization is we legalized purchase, but we didn't like legal consumption almost.
That's a beautiful thing, though, Trev. That's the same reason why we were able to get away with murder in the early 2000s, right through the mid 2000s into the fucking the crazy era of post 2010 when we had a dispensary on every corner, an illicit dispensary on every corner of every street. The reason why we could do crazy shit like that because the police knew that what was going on was not right, and if they took us to court and they kept taking us to court, we would keep winning Supreme Court battles, overturning laws that only made it more complex and more difficult for them to persecute us in the court of law. So currently, people need to understand that that's yeah. And listen, by the way, all my people at Bookclub need to know this is not a suicide kamikaze mission. Okay, I'm not creating this thing because I want the city to come get me. No, man, we're trying to be as compliant as we can. We've put in air ducts. We ask people not to smoke. We ask them. If people continue to do so, we just don't have security. Okay, nobody's going to enforce it like that. And yes, people sometimes dab and smoke inside of our space. And yes, that is what makes our gathering sometimes somewhat special because these kinds of spaces, shout out to everyone who's on the pot block. That would be, even though I'm not a huge supporter of Mr. Mark Emery on a personal basis, I believe that Mr. Mark Emery has had, in general, positive impact on the availability of safe consumption spaces. Okay, anybody who will argue against that, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And also, big shout out to Amsterdam Cafe. Both of those spots have been, I think, a huge inspiration for Bookclub. We've made sure to, like, from square one, we've been in touch with those people. We've been talking to them about what we're doing. In fact, some of the employees from Amsterdam Cafe have become members of Bookclub and vice versa. I am a member of the Amsterdam. We have those friendly relationships and we all got to push together. Look, the OGs are those people on that pop block, and those are the OGs in like Canada wide. Also, big shout out to Abby also because she was a really significant force out east, and nobody really held their ground like she did. Shout out Abby Roach, right?
100%.
So we've all got to pay heed to the people that like set the standard, that opened up the pathway. Now it's time for all of us to come in and do a slight bit of civil disobedience as a community, demonstrate the fact that we're ready for this, and we're not gonna necessarily wait for you to decide when it's appropriate for us to have our legal and personal rights respected. Okay? Because as Trevor, you just pointed out, you cannot logically legalize the sale and consumption of this and not provide us with places for that to happen. That is a nonsensical, illogical way to proceed, and it's affecting people. And it's not just affecting recreational consumers like my man here, Trev. It's affecting medical consumers like me. When you're medical too, bro?
Dude, I transitioned because of an EMS injury. I
Oh,
started
shit, I
using
didn't know that,
cannabis
dude.
medically
Okay.
first and foremost for like a back injury. And then I realized that it had huge mental health benefits for me. And I actually utilized it to control, because it was like 8 months before I realized I had major mental health problems from that accident, because I was in so much pain. I was just coping through the pain. I got into a back of the ambulance and I almost blacked out from a panic attack, because that's where I was in the accident. I'm like, okay, there's something wrong here. It was almost 2 years of treatment I went through for my back injury and my mental health. And it's the reason I'm no longer working EMS is because I use cannabis as my medicinal support versus hardcore opiates, T3s, and psych meds. That is the reason why I'm no longer working as a paramedic.
Wow, I didn't know that about you, Trev. That's crazy, man.
That's
Crazy.
That's
What a
why
story,
I went from
dude.
0 to 60, man. I had to learn all about it on the medical side, because that's my purpose for using. And I was arguing against Alberta Health Services, EMS, and the Workers' Compensation Board. I had to justify every single decision I had. And I had no medical support, because I went and got my medical card just so I can go, it's legit. It's Health Canada approved. So you can't tell me that this isn't a legitimate prescription. And then I had to go, well, what are you taking? Well, here. And I was talking through the counselors, the psychiatrists, the actual MDs, and I'm explaining the chemical reaction and how it's benefiting me. And they're like, oh, but we could just give you this and it does the same thing. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Yeah. That stops the receptor from feeling pain. This allows me to feel pain, but gives me the motivation to go about my life and find an alternative way to enjoy it. Yeah, I can't run, but I can go and watch somebody else play football and at least enjoy the game.
Dude, when somebody like you or I think about this, man, because it looks like you have your own place there. It looks like you have a dab piece on the table. It looks like you can consume at home. I can't consume at home. And like me, think about this, like, because we're on Commercial Drive, right? Think about Commercial Drive a little bit. I know, Trev, I don't know if you've spent a lot of time. It's like the more like, it's definitely not the wealthiest community, even though property values have spiked like crazy. There's a lot of middle income housing. There's a lot of really expensive houses too. Most of them have been converted to middle income housing. And a lot of people that have middle income housing, like me, we don't have a place to consume. We literally have to go outside our house in winter and stand there outside. I'm a joint smoker, so I have to consume that joint for 20 minutes. I have to stand there outside in the cold for 20 minutes. I don't have ACLs, and I dislocated and separated my arm from my shoulder, broke my humerus in half. Cold makes my arthritis go fucking crazy. So you're asking me to go stand out in the fucking cold all winter when we have cold spurts, when we have rain, when we have snow, all that shit. You want me to go stand out there? And I'm saying I'm not even that sick. I didn't bang my body up that badly. I worked in the downtown east side for close to a decade. I know people that have living situations where they cannot smoke indoors and they're in a fucking wheelchair.
Yeah.
And they have seriously crippling arthritis, or they have another condition where their mobility is limited and their medicine of choice is cannabis. And they've got nowhere to fucking go. And I find that to be actually criminal. I find that to be in violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, where we are allowed to pursue happiness, freedom. We're allowed to pursue health. We're allowed to be human. And smoking weed is a normal human thing to do. People need to deal with it. They need to deal with it. Oh, but it's smoke. You know what? It's the only kind of smoke that we have not been able to prove if it's carcinogenic. In fact, we've got some data that indicates that it might counteract carcinogenic effects in your lungs caused by other forms of smoke. It's very confusing because there are absolutely carcinogenics in cannabis smoke. The question is, does cannabis tar and does cannabis smoke leave lesions or any kind of any kind of adverse effect on your pulmonary system? And the answer to that is it can, as I cough, it can. But the average consumer and secondhand smoke from this particular source, the data we've compiled, which is rather extensive, is not like that of tobacco. It's very different. And it's not like that of cooking oil in your hut, which is one of the most common forms of death in developing countries where, you don't have a proper chimney, you don't have a way to evacuate the flame that you're going to be lighting inside your hut, and people inhale that, then they die. Yeah. And so again, like, I know that humans are very traumatized by this type of knowledge, and it's true. Most times you want to avoid smoke. Cannabis smoke needs to be reconsidered scientifically and socially. It needs to be our concept of it needs to be rebuilt. And shisha bars are another big one for me, man. Shisha is it's important to people from the Middle East, man. You're going to tell these people they can't have a shisha bar. So you're telling me that as a free Canadian individual, you can't choose to go into a space where other people are consuming a bit of tobacco with mint and other types of products inside of a burning ember. I'm sorry, I'm totally against that, man. Shisha bars should be allowed, and I think that that's fertile ground for civil disobedience. And safe consumption spaces are beyond fertile ground. They should be happening. We're glad that Bookclub has basically kicked a lot of people into motion. They've seen what we're doing, and we're like, fuck, man, we're going to do this too. I love it. Bring it.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. Bookclub gives me a framework where I'm organizing my events. If I can find space like it, I can use it as it's working over here. Why can't it work here? That's all I need. You just need the proof of the cause, the proof that it can function. Then there's going to be a bunch of people doing it, right? Like I was telling you about the event that I'm trying to get together. It's taken a couple steps forward last night, and it's almost to the point where I can start actively talking about it and promoting it. And it looks like it's actually going to be more than just a singular. We might actually blow it out to be 3 different times, which would be awesome, where we could have 3 different groups of people involved and really expand it out to a whole community access. And when I heard the person that I want going to be working with on this want to expand it to that, I got huge excitement, because I'm like, okay, 3 opportunities for community networking and the industry as a whole to connect and focus on, with that the documentary being so focused on terroir and healthy, holistic cannabis growth. It's going to open up conversation for a lot of people. And that's the Frenchy Dreams of Hashish is the documentary. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. Like if you have any interest or passion about cannabis, you have to check it out, because it's not just a hash documentary. It talks so much more on the actual plant and what is needed to be able to create good quality hash. And that's good quality flower, which comes from good quality terroir, which it all leads back to the ground that we're planting it in and the people who are taking care of the plants.
And Trevor, I have to thank you because, due to your invitation, I brought it to the book club board, and it sounds like everybody's down. So it seems like we'll be having a showing at book club too, thanks to you, brother.
Well, I'm glad that you are, right? Like, and that's the thing. I want to, if I get an idea to try and do something, and there's somebody else that's doing something very similar in an environment that I can't get to, here, run with it. Get it. It's the same idea that you have. I'm all about growing this community and trying to get it to where it should have been on day 1 of legalization. And if we can get that at year 5, year 6, year 7, that's a win to me, because most of us were thinking about it in a decade into the industry. And realistically, we're closer to year 5, year 6, year 7, having that be a reality, because it sounds like we've got, there's one cigar lounge in Alberta and it's on a reserve. It sounds like they're transitioning to a cannabis consumption lounge as well. And if they're set up for a cigar lounge, that I don't see why they wouldn't allow smoke-based consumption, and it's on a reservation, so they follow different regulations.
Oh shit, that's great, dude.
If that place flips over, I'm gonna be there as much as possible to promote that, because it being in Edmonton, is going to be a huge benefit on top of it.
I love it. I love what I'm hearing, man. Yeah, honestly, who better than native people to open this shit wide open, man? That would be fucking awesome. And you know what? Like that's I'm sure because I haven't spent enough time on enough reserves down there. I'm sure it's already happening, you know? So like, yeah, man, I'm stoked to hear that, dude. That's gonna be fucking awesome. You know, and one thing I can tell anybody out there that's thinking about doing it, the one thing I can tell you is work on your ventilation ahead of time. Get some good ventilation in there. Again, I am the voice of reason in this space. I try to keep people from not dabbing or smoking too much in there, but there's like sometimes 20 joints lit at the same time when I'm looking away, and it gets fucking smoky as hell. And I'm telling you, even though people are like, hot box, man, it's awesome. Trust me, there's like a lot of people that don't like it.
Nope.
And you'll scare a lot of people away, especially the dabbers, if you do not have good air circulation. Dabbers, they do not like stale smoke sitting there while they're taking their dab. Fucks up all the flavor, right? So if you want the community to stay united, you got to move that air, baby.
Oh, exactly. You either have to have atomizers that are working really good to clean that air, or be pushing it from one end to the other. And you almost need the atomizers at the one end that you're pushing the air through. Have that dual effect.
So it's suck as much air out as you can, basically. Right now, I'm going to be probably adding basically an industrial level, kind of like the one they have at anybody who's been to Amsterdam Cafe knows what I'm talking about. Amsterdam Cafe is a properly ventilated smoke lounge. That is truly an inspiration. They have a massive vent, like that big, that's like
I was just gonna say, the lift after party, we were testing that shit.
Dude, how many joints were lit at the same time? There was like no smoke. Now, mind you, they have a very tall ceiling, which is another big advantage. I've seen some spaces in Toronto that are opening up that have nice tall ceilings. That is a good choice. Bookclub has a low ceiling, so I'm having to put a shit ton of vents. But you know what? Just set your mind to it. You shall conquer. Because people thought I couldn't do it, and go to Bookclub today. Oh my God. It's like the suction in there. It is beautiful suction.
Anyways. That Amsterdam Cafe was beautiful. Like I wanted to check it out when I was in the city and in Vancouver area last year when I was up there visiting with the in-laws, but I am so glad I waited until that lift after party. It was the much better environment to go and get that first introduction, right? Where it's busy. There's a bunch of people that are just excited to be there and network. It was definitely a good vibe overall.
Yeah, man. I love that this conversation is focused on that because it is so timely. And I think a lot of people watching this will enjoy us converse on, pushing this thing forward and hopefully inspiring some more people to be like, can this happen? And I have to give a big shout out to Burb as well, because Bookclub would not have happened without them helping us connect with that space. They know the landlord of the space. They are the ones who got us the lease. They are the ones who helped us decide on the look a lot. I'm not a look guy, and Burb looks fucking amazing. And the Burb peeps are like, especially John Kay, just knew how to make it look right. I think if I would have done it, it would have looked a lot shabbier, shantytown style, Yeah, but it feels like a refined space. So I have to give shout out to the people who made that space happen, because at the end of the day, people, really, this whole smoke lounge and vape lounge thing is about the space. It's about having that landlord that's cool. You don't want to lie to your landlord, people. That's going to make you enter into a lease that you're going to have to break soon after, and you're going to have a pissed off landlord that might even call the city on you, and then the city's going to be not so happy with you. Right? The least thing you can do for your city is use a private space where the landlord is informed and they are fine with the building that they own, the private building that they own, being used in that way. Okay? So anyways, folks, remember that civil disobedience and be doing it right. The reason I didn't get my shit taken from those dispensaries, because when they came in, they saw a properly run establishment that had done everything within our power to be compliant. Everything we could do, we did. So that when they came, take my shit, my patients were in the entry room, and they were like, hey, dude, I've got a federal license. They required a federal license to join this club. did you think that those were the rules here? And the police were like, oh fuck, we probably don't want to take these people in because if they fight us on it, it's only going to look bad in front of my sergeant, and then they might overturn some municipal bylaws that then really pisses off the city, that makes them go home. Copper, what the fuck did you do?
Yeah.
So yeah, at the end of the day, we have, remember that that's the name of the game. The name of the game is be smart. Don't be stupid about it. Think about your patrons. Take care of your patrons. Do not allow people consuming random amounts of other drugs in there. It's not like, don't do safe consumption space, in my opinion, for like anything. In my opinion, try to be focused as much as you can on cannabis, because you can specialize your space and your services for cannabis, for the cannabis people, for the cannabis community, right?
Absolutely.
Coke people and cannabis people don't tend to mix so well. And I don't know if anybody's noticed that.
Yeah.
But
well, there's certain things that there's a handful of cannabis community like to go down the extra rabbit hole. They like to go and visit Wonderland a little bit further, and the edibles aren't quite enough. There needs to be a little fungus or a little bit of a bike
dude, and
ride
nothing's
involved.
wrong. And people gotta know that, like, when I saw cocaine's going basically legal in BC, I was happy. We need all of the harm reduction we can get down here, because I have friends that have died from doing a line because it wasn't just coke in there.
And like I'm of the mentality of approach that's a little bit closer to Portugal's, where
Oh yeah,
the consumer is not getting criminally charged. They're being pulled out of their area, and not pulled out of their area, but they're being relocated and attempted to being reintegrated into the community. That's what we should have for the consumers and the people who have drug issues, because if they can create a healthy network of people that aren't connected to the drug, they can pull themselves out of it a little bit easier.
yeah.
It's not a solo battle.
And also, I'm of the thought that when you get to a certain age and when you're an adult, you should be able to choose to use pure heroin or pure cocaine as just because you want to.
Yep.
I think like an old person should not have to be questioned whether or not you're retired and you have the money and the means. That's what you want to do with your life. The thing is, a lot of people will choose to do that with their life, but then they have to access dirty supply, which makes it way more complex to get off it, to stay alive, so I just think that, like, if you want to use drugs, you should have access to safe supply. I don't think it's necessarily the role of the movement that I'm kind of like discussing on this show to provide that wider range of services. I think the state needs to pull their head out of their ass, allow more insight type services for heroin, provide specialized services for people recovering from crack cocaine and cocaine. Each drug is its own thing, man. And like you said, each drug's going to require its own recovery community and recovery specialized services, right? So yeah, it's a long battle, man, but we got to stop the deaths. That's number one. I think the city of Vancouver's got the right choice. And I'm of the mind that this is the right city to allow this movement to pick up flame, and for the rest of the country to go, okay, we can't stop this, right? Because people want this, and you can do it safely and compliantly. And I think it's up to us to show that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way I look at it is we should be protecting the consumers, because there's some people who are like we said, the addicts, who they're not even of choice consumer at this point. They're physically addictive, and they're needing that supply to be able to just maintain their life of what they have. Now, the people who are providing those dirty drugs, we should be going after them. We're having a different conversation. The suppliers and the consumers are two totally different people, and it's
we are. But remember that criminalizing these kids that are street dealers, man, it's not the best choice either, in my opinion. I got to know a lot of the. Sorry.
I'm not meaning the dealers. I'm talking the actual, like, the larger scale the people who are creating. Right.
Well, that's going after the Mexicans, bud. And Canada likes to think that we're not part of the chain of fuckery around money laundering and getting paid from the gangsters. And unfortunately, Canada is highly compliant in that. And a lot of really powerful people are making a lot of money from that trade. So it's funny how the Americans and the Canadians are like, we got to go after the Mexicans. But I'm like, dude, we got to go. The truth is, like, I've met a lot of these people in Sinaloa and shit. And I look at them, the source of the entire thing. And I'm like, you know what? I think a lot of these guys we should be going after. I think a lot of these guys need to get integrated. I think in fact, I think fixing the entire problem is countries like my country stopping to fight the medical, just like they did in Colombia, and finding ways of actually integrating them, not like they did in Colombia, where they're like, we're gonna get you jobs and we're gonna get you well paid, and you're gonna run your sector that you're currently in possession of, and you're gonna be able to grow weed there and make lots of money, and then they fuck them after. And then those groups are obviously not going to be too cool with that. So I think actually the Colombian example is it's a good way to start thinking about it, except that we have to follow through on our promises to those groups, because otherwise shit will get real ugly. I promise you that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
They will
man.
take what
I
they
think
were
that
told.
honestly, the drug war is just the biggest failure in the history of humankind. And I think that every form of the drug war needs to be ceased entirely. And I think that there is no drug, not even the one that's killing all of our children, which, by the way, is oftentimes extracted from legal sources, obtained from legal sources. We forget that the drug that's killing all of our children in Canada right now is utilized safely by the medical establishment. And that if we only found ways of making it so that these enterprises that are everywhere throughout the world are not just seen as criminal organizations that are acting separate from the state. Once we see them as being part of the state, as we do in Mexico, as we cannot do in Canada yet, but trust me, we're not that different up here. That's when everything changes. We realize that the criminal is still our brother and our sister, and that criminal that kidnapped people, that murdered people, we still have to think of them humanly. And we have to stop this whole thing at the source, and they are the source. So there's no other fucking way to do it. But you know what, dude? Trev, I'm a little bit of an extremist when it comes to that kind of shit, only because of the life that I've led, and because I've had the insight to meet the murderers and to meet the people that are doing shit that are and going, even you are a fucking human, eh? Goddamn. You know,
Well,
yeah.
that's exactly it. You've had different exposures, and having growing up in Mexico, you would have those connections. You would know people who potentially would have been driven into that environment. So you have a lot more of a personal connection, where me, it's that disassociated. I'm still looking at it from a human level. And it's just, I look at it as the people who are intentionally doing harm. Those are the ones we should be going after. Anybody that's just trying to provide a service, it's a little bit of a different, because for me, it's intent. If you're intending to harm, those are the type of people that I think we should be trying to not necessarily punish, but identify and prove that they're the issue. From then on, anybody else is trying to provide a service, it's argumentative that they're just doing a job.
Yeah, the thing is, buddy, that our government knows who's who and who's doing what, and they choose not to do anything about it. Okay, yeah. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like, the people that are at the top are so high up there that, like, if you knew their stories and you talk to them and you meet them, you're like, oh, okay,
yeah.
So it's not like it's a big game that's been going on really since the turn of the century, but more so since the 70s and the 60s, man. And like, it's a money making endeavor, just like the way our prison system is run, just like so many things are done in modernity that is illogical, nonsensical, looking away from the science and the data, looking away from what we know about sociology, anthropology, psychology, looking away from the soft sciences, and thinking of the world in a purely materialistic framework, which is the way that in the West we think and the way that we grow up. I also had the benefit of going and taking an anthropology degree and taking a psychology degree, and having my Mexican mind flipped on its head, because Mexicans don't think any of this shit, man. We're very old school in the way we think about, everything, man. People of color, women, everything. Mexicans are on another level, man. But the nice thing is that being in Canada, dude, and getting the chance to soak up this culture, and then traveling throughout the world, you definitely the more I travel, the more when I spend time in China and I spend time in Southeast Asia, you really get a totally different way of looking at shit, and you learn to stop thinking so much in the way that our parents were thinking, because our parents think like people from here. And the more you internationalize the way you look at the human being, the more you're like, okay, man, we're all some shit that we think is fucked up, other people are doing all day, and things that we're doing that are completely fucked up. Like look at poverty, look at like so many things that like a country like China resolved, and we think they're totally fucked up, and they're having the homeless people on the street, and they don't have addicts, and they don't have murder rates, and they don't have all this stuff that the United States and Canada has. So for me, it's like, and at the same time, China has a shit ton of stuff that I'm like, okay, well, they have their own set of issues, right? So I think that like when you go to a country like Mexico and you spend a lot of time there, that's what happens to you over time. You realize that the gangsters are not just the bad guys, and that the government is not just the bad guys, and that it's so complex that it's like life is just infinitely. Every character in life has dark and light, and there is no character or being or non-human organization that doesn't have that quality to it. And it's more about learning how to put the pieces together to make them work differently than they currently are, and being dissatisfied with the current arrangement. I think that is the crux of the matter. And I know, bro, that I'm talking to somebody that's 100% there. I'm preaching to the choir. And dude, what a great space you've created here, man, that we can have these kind of geeky yet, you know, so like relevant conversations to what we're about, man. So
Well, absolutely.
thank you for giving me the platform and the soapbox, man. I really appreciate it, man.
Well, absolutely. And that's I was actually talking about this yesterday, what you're just saying. And the way that I explained it is there's a 2D plane of thinking, which is almost what our parents have, where it's this or it's somewhere in the middle. We have what I call a 3D spectrum of thinking. We can look at it from that line, but at the same time, we can flip it 180 degrees upside down and look and see how what we think is the positive is the most negative outcome, and how what we think is negative is the most positive outcome. And that ability to look at it at all sides of the essentially, you're not looking at a circle, you're looking at a sphere. And if you can see the sphere, you're going to look at all the problems and anything that's going on, and you'll end up finding the middle point a little bit more appealing, where, yeah, you got to give up some of what you want, but you can at least explain that it's an equal give for the other person, and it's that compromise and finding that mutual growth.
Exactly. It's the Rubik's Cube of life, my friend.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah, man. Great fucking talk, man. Damn. I gotta look at your other episodes, dude.
Oh,
what else has been going on? Yeah, man.
Yeah, there's some actually really good ones. The one from last week, I had Jordan on. We really went into a lot of the products, and we went into like storage with AGLC, and just how a big point of it was we were talking about how they're still taking the same pay without running the operating the Alberta Cannabis.org. And we're like, it wouldn't be paying the fees that the companies are paying wouldn't be as big of an issue if AGLC instituted cryo storage for the product. And it's funny, I brought that up, and he's just like, yeah, if we were paying the same prices, but you're getting product that's 9 months old, but it's been cold stored and maintained the quality, and you get it and it's fresher.
Dude, I have this theory that, and I know the BCLV will hate me if they hear this, but shout out, I respect you guys. I love a lot of you. But I have this theory that since DD got fired up in BC, there's some like they threw a gremlin into the works at their website and shit. Like, I think they were like, so wait, we can take the same pay but not run this warehouse. You know what I'm saying? So like, so if we're horrible enough at our job, you mean maybe people will stop, relying on us for this centralized service, and maybe we could just take the pay and not do the service? And I'm just like, I'm sorry, but BCLDB, out of all the provinces out there, geez Louise, come on. And listen, I respect you a lot because you let Potluck and Station House in, and those are great products that should be in your market because people want them. But for God's sakes, like, you guys, you're not even doing first in, first out. You know that? You don't even have FIFO down. Like, you're sending people old ass product that you've forgotten to back and sending
AGLC?
them like it's the most recent drop. Everybody knows what's going on. And it's like, either do the job or don't do the job, because it's like, man, like, oh.
Well,
anyways,
AGLC, if you order multiple boxes, you could get different lots. You could get a new one, an old one, and a semi-old one.
Bro, Alberta's like so much easier to deal with, and they're on it. They were answering their emails. Anyways, yeah, it's BCLDB respect, because again, you let us in, but you can't keep me in stock, for example. You know that, like, Potluck sells out too quick, people can't re-up. And then when we, I don't know why, like, we're selling the shit out of it and it can't be stocked in sufficient amount ever, never. So yeah, and then we don't have DD. That's the problem, dude. Hopefully they'll allow I think that DD should be something that it should not be exclusive to the province. And I think that, like, it should be anybody with good product should have direct access to retailers. And it's a country. We're federally integrated. We should all be playing together, you know? But anyways, just my 2 bits.
Well, and for me, the direct delivery, if you want to have kind of a trial period to see if the company can run it, you got 6 months within your province to see if you can successfully run DD, get your program up and running. And then after the 6 months, you show that you can successfully fill all your orders within your province. Here's Canada. And at that point, you get 6 months to build your framework. And then the next 6 months, you blow out and you go to Canada. And then you can also build up your brand. You can do it. It gives the scalability to it a little bit easier option, right?
Fully agree, dude. I think DD is the way forward. The only problem is the functionality of a lot of these DD sites sucks. Well, people gotta get on it.
Yeah.
No sending in a form for requesting the DD, people. Come on. Like, make like a fluid payment process, fluid delivery process. Like,
I would love to see if the Alberta government allowed a private opportunity to do the same thing that they're doing. Just a private company to come in and do the exact same thing, to where they're just providing the delivery service.
Out here in BC, we've got Herbal Dispatch that's doing a good job of bringing together a bunch of good brands under one roof that you can place order. Shout out to Herbal Dispatch. I think a lot of people are going to be doing that in BC because we don't have that restriction here. And you're right, dude. That's the answer. The answer is unite under a single banner and have people be able to view multiple products, multiple brands, place order and delivery from a single source, right? So that's a fluid purchasing experience. People that have like 3 products on the DD platform, even if it's fluid, you're probably not going to see too much movement, man.
Well, and that's the thing, is if I were to go and do something like that, I'd go and hit up as many of the small craft micro facilities and just have a list of good products, right?
Yeah, but if you got to place individual orders and individual websites, that creates a lot of logistical burden on your ordering. So
I would mean, like, if I were to do that collective, that would be the flavors and tastes that I'd be focusing towards, is a bunch of the smaller producers. So that then when you could go to the dispensary, I'm just saying that if I were to curate that direct delivery brand, it'd be going after the crafts and micros in Alberta.
What's your favorite flower in Alberta right now? Go.
Favorite flower right now? Honestly, the one that I've been loving the most has been that peanut butter breath from Distinct. And now that,
oh shit,
and if you can find the ones with the February lot, they've added humidity packs from then on, and it has like a vanilla and peanut butter batter taste to it. It is really good flower.
Integra packs or Bovita packs?
I'm not sure which one they're going to be adding, because I did my 2 reviews, and that's the one thing I suggested. I'm like, you guys need to add some humidity packs. And I got a message like a week after I put it on there. They're like, from February on, the humidity packs are being added. Like,
so funny though, because so many people are hating on the packs right now, dude. So many people are like, it takes aroma away. And yeah, I can't.
I hear the argument on the Bovita side, and it's funny. You hear it more from the Bovita having the terp steel. Integra, I haven't heard as much of that, but it's starting to come a little bit. Not as much, but it's starting to. I don't know.
I got a theory about the terp steel, and I don't think it's stealing terps at all. I think it's impossible for it to be stealing terps. Yeah. Typically speaking, I think it's ridiculous. But I think what is happening is that the H2O barrier that it creates around the monoterps might be creating a little bit of nose lock. Not necessarily flavor lock on the burn, but a little bit of nose lock when you pop open your jar, which creates the impression, because think about it, right? Yeah. With more moisture, H2O combined with volatiles will make those less aromatic, less perceptible by your olfactory nerve.
You're increasing the shell on
And,
the outside
and
of the
think
oil.
about it also, that H2O layer creates a lower dissipation rate for the volatiles. So that means less volatiles are leaving the product, hence less aroma is hitting your nose.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the actual answer. I don't think that Bovitas actually suck flavor at all. I think that like they preserve terpenes, they preserve flavor, but you will notice it more on the burn than you will when you open up your jar. If you're like smelling it, I think there is a chance. And by the way, I don't think it happens with every batch at all. If you're putting moisture back into it, the nose will come out a bit more usually. But if you're putting it in and you're already right around the 11.5 MC, you're putting in that 62% or the 58%, and it's not actually increasing your internal RH. Your internal RH was already going to be established at a perfectly fine level around the 60% RH to have long-term storage capacity, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people will put that in when it's not really necessary. And I think that under those specific conditions, sometimes it can create a bit of nose lock, not flavor lock. In my humble opinion, I think that's what's going on. That's my theory. It's a pet theory. It's not published. So it's not necessarily something that's written in stone, but does it make sense to you, Trev, what I'm saying?
Like the way that I would, because the analogy that I'd put that is the water's creating an eggshell around the volatile so that it doesn't explode.
Exactly.
When you run it through your grinder, you get that explosive aroma because once it's ground, it's just as potent as it was day one. So that's I could see that. And that eggshell is kind of the best way that I think I could describe it, because it just gives that it's still soft, but it's enough of a protection that if it's bouncing around, it's not going to break off.
I think that's what's going on, and makes sense. Also, think about like what we call the Hawaiian hot box, right? Like when you go into, you go into the bathroom when you were a teenager, and you're blazing that in the bathroom with the hot water running, and it's creating steam, and that means that like all of the volatiles from the smoke are being encapsulated in water molecules, being carried away, and also just being encapsulated so that you can't really smell it. Like the particulate is probably still residually in there, but it's like been encapsulated in moisture, which just keeps it away from our olfactory nerve. It's not coming directly in touch with that compound as much. So it just makes sense scientifically and like comparatively in terms of like previous, methods like those, right?
Yeah. And that deduction makes sense, right? It's kind of putting the science and the information that we have already and just kind of deducing what we think would make most sense, and it absolutely does, because
we've covered a lot of ground in this session, man. Damn.
That's why I keep it pretty open, because that's what I like to do, is I just let the conversation start going, because like it was in those smoke pits, you end up getting into these heavy conversations that need to be had, and we end up we don't have a camera, we don't have mics, we have nothing to record, and we've had these style of conversations how many times in the smoke pit?
Yeah, man. Well, it's pretty much the only thing that happens, right? So good convo.
Absolutely. And I would love to have you back on again once you do get everything up and running. You do have anything going on at Bookclub that's big that you want to promote, man, just reach out and I'd gladly have you back on.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of big announcements coming. So I'd love to come back on whenever you're ready for me, my brother.
It's an open seat for you, man. You let me know when we can and we'll get it sorted.
I love it. Respect. Thank you for having me, dude. And like I said, anytime, let me know. I'll be back. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It was glad having you. And thank you for everyone checking out this podcast. I look forward to visiting with you live on our YouTube live stream tomorrow, as well as the continuing content next week. But with that being said, thank you, Adolfo, for hopping on. I look forward to chatting to you in the next one, because we'll definitely be having you back on.
Peace, dude. See ya.
Later.